Your book, Tough Titties, came out.
That was going to go on a Times Square billboard. It was rejected because of the
title.
Yep.
We're just going to take the liberty to say as much as we want. Really taking the time to learn how to be a really brilliant communicator can pay dividends upon dividends.
Like if you get honest in there, don't try to make everything into a hero story or give us what I call vulnerable. I'm feeling really less than about my recent 7-figure launch.
It's not even like the deepest, darkest moments that are connecting us with people. It's how I'm experiencing myself in the moment, whatever it is. We haven't said enough. Laura, I am so thrilled to have you back on the Powerhouse Women podcast. Thanks for being here.
I love being a return guest. Thank you for having me, Lindsay.
You are one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite, do we even like use the word like internet personalities, if you will?
I guess
You're one
so.
of my favorite friends. And having gotten to know you and gotten to connect with you on a previous podcast, read your book, I'm so excited to have you back because the way that you are able to write and translate things in such a relatable way, in a way that feels like so truly authentic, is something I'm always trying to master. And so I'm excited to have a conversation about that today.
Oh, it's my favorite topic. So
Great.
Awesome.
Great. Let's dive in. I also thought of you yesterday because I walked past some restaurant that it wasn't a talking shrimp. It was a dancing one. Something with a dancing shrimp.
My dad loved that restaurant.
You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes. In Midtown, it was called Home of the Dancing Shrimp.
That's what it says. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll bring everybody around to the story. So talking shrimp is a part of your brand. Where did that come from? You told me the story once, but I can't get off of this subject. So remind me again where that story came from.
Yeah, it's a fairly unsexy story.
Great. It's my favorite kind.
About the origin of my business. So in 2009, my husband and I had gotten reamed on our first tax return together. And so we went to a new accountant and he said, well, I don't know why you thought your taxes would be better as a married couple. What you need to do is incorporate. And because we were both kind of free agents. And he said, so just make up a name for your business, preferably something with an available URL, and I will incorporate you. And so we just had a list of stupid names. And one of them was Funny Cry Happy, because there was a gift shop around the corner selling counterfeit crap called Funny Cry Happy Gift Shop. And then there was Made You Look Media. I had a bunch of names, but the only one that wasn't taken was Talking Shrimp. I don't know where I even came up with it, except that my husband and I love seafood. We travel a lot. We always have pictures of seafood on a plate, and he loves talking animals. Not that there are talking animals, but just
the idea
of it. Yeah. So
I feel like that's all I really need to know about him to really know that I could really get along quite well. Yeah. That's amazing.
I will give him your number and he can text you reels all day long of
talking animals.
Yes, or dancing animals or.
Isn't that true? We could really learn so much about a person if we look at what ends up on their explore page of their Instagram feed.
Yeah. Well, his is also a lot of boobs.
Okay. Well, we'll just let him have that one.
Yep.
So we're just going to pivot right from there because I was excited to have you back. Not only am I in New York City, which is your home city, and our first conversation was right when your book, Tough Titties, came out. And when I say it is one of my favorite books of 2023,
thank you.
It is so refreshing. It's funny. You are funny and so hilarious in your storytelling. But and I'm going to bring it up again so we can capture it now for our 2.0 podcast version where we're doing YouTube as well in this very fancy setup, because I really think it's one of those books that every woman needs to do herself the favor and read, because it so meets you in those moments where you just feel like the awkward kid on the playground. I don't know if everyone has had them. I have had my fair share of them. So catch us up on, has it been a year since the book came out?
Almost.
Why does it feel like time
this will air,
is a warp?
It came out June 2023.
Yeah, so it'll be about a year.
Yes, and the paperback comes out June 11th, 2024. So yeah, that year went by fast.
So quickly. And what would you say has been, let's do this, your favorite part of this past year, having the book come out, and maybe the most surprising part in the year since the book released?
Favorite part was definitely like talking to people about the book, going on podcasts like yours, doing the bookstore signings were so much fun. I haven't done that many of them. I've only done like 3 or 4, and 4 of them. And that was such a joy to have people come in person, show up, like people I didn't know, and just have a whole audience of people excited to hear me talk about the book.
Yeah.
And then have great conversation partners. And it's like, that is such a joy.
Yeah. What about the most surprising part of the experience?
I think I was really surprised by the limitations the title put on it. I think that the title opens doors. Like, people want to talk about it. They love it. They're drawn to it. And it gets attention. But it also, like, we live in a world of prudes. I didn't realize how prudish the world still was. And that it was, I spent all this money, not that much money, but I spent money and time making a video that was gonna go on a Times Square billboard. And it was rejected by the Times Square Billboard Committee because of the word titties. Alone. Yep. Title alone.
It's 2024, people.
There are actual titties all over Times Square. People with tassels, nothing but tassels on their nips. And here,
you can't say the word, though.
You can't say the word. You can't show the word. You can have like the naked cowboy in his very transparent tighty whities, and you can't say the word.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
That is surprising. And, you know, what is so interesting is the whole, I would say, like, what I received from the book, again, is just this permission to be so authentic about, like, those things in life that are such universal experiences, and to realize that then as a society, we still, like, reject the things that connect us.
Yeah.
You know? How have you worked around that? Or have you just let it be what it is and allowed the book to be seen in how it's supposed to be? Because one kind of cool thing, Kelly Ripa loved the book, right? So she shared it. How have you navigated that?
Yeah, she shared it and had to black out the title, actually.
No,
she had to put Post-its. Yeah, she had to put Post-its over the title. Tough bleep. Tough bleep, exactly. And she said on air, she's like, we will call it Tough Tatas, if you will. Tough, and she...
Interesting.
Yeah, and she was kind of taken aback by that. She didn't expect it to be censored on air, but that was a real thrill. And she... Like, when I had a friend reach out to her who knew her and asked her about it, and if she would give it a blurb. That was how our connection started. And she said, I love the title. Sure, whatever I can do. So, it's a blessing and a curse. And, like, I'm disappointed in certain, like, types of media that I didn't get, and they couldn't run ads on Amazon. The publisher was going to. That was in the contract.
Wow.
And like any media I didn't get, any write-ups or lists I wasn't on, well, I just assume it's because of the title. That's like, to spare my own ego. I'm like, well, it must have been the title. So in that way, it's handy. Yeah.
Well, we're just going to take the liberty on this free form of media to say titties as much as we want.
Titties.
Yeah. So there you go.
We can say it. Mm-hmm.
Take that, whoever's in charge of other media. Okay, so what I want to really dive into today, because this is actually opening up a whole conversation around of what I wanted to bring you in to talk about, is just this freedom to be so authentic. I think I look at the way that you write and how you teach people to write. I've gone through the Copy Cure, which is one of the courses that you offer. You have amazing educational resources to help someone write in their own voice in a way that I've actually never seen or experienced. It's not through the lens of marketing, but yet it's like the most authentic marketing that I've ever had or created are the things that are the most authentic. So what is your take on that? Because you at your core are really a writer. Were you a writer before you were a marketer, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, I started I started in publishing like many years ago in the 90s at a magazine called Spy, and went from there to TV, to writing promos for cable TV, mostly at Nick at Night, Nickelodeon, TV Land. And so I was a copywriter, and it was marketing, it was promotion, but I always considered myself a writer, not a marketer. And one reason I wanted to write the book was because I've always called myself a writer, and then people would say, "What did you write?" And they're expecting me to say a book. And it is nice to have something to say, like whether it's a show or a book or a thing, a significant thing that they might know you from. So yes, I've always been a writer. And the way I segued into this weird marketing online world was really through my blog. It was through my friend Marie Forleo, who's my partner in the Copy Cure.
Right.
And she kind of pulled me in. But also she pulled me in and suggested that I start a blog. When I started the company, put up a website for Talking Shrimp because we were incorporated.
Right.
She said, I showed her the homepage, and she said, "You're going to have a blog on here, right?" And I was like, "Oh, isn't it?" It was 2009. I was like, "Isn't it too late to have a blog?" And she's like, "No, you moron. Of course." She's like, "Of course it's not too late. You have to have a blog. You of all people, you love to write. Yeah. This is a place to write your stories." So I finally had a real outlet, like a true creative outlet for the stuff that I wanted to write in my voice. So that was really my entree into this world.
Oh, that's so cool to hear, because you are such a writer. It's just so obvious. Even I think I told you on the last podcast we did, yours are like my favorite emails to open, the storytelling. And it's one thing to be really masterful at that for yourself, but the way that you're able to teach it, the way it's broken down in your courses and the things that you teach, how did you hone that skill? Because it's one thing to be great at it, and another to teach others to do it in their own voice, especially something as intimate as writing.
Yeah, I think it was by helping people with their copy and editing it and rewriting it. I saw what was lacking in just about everybody's writing when they were writing for business, especially, or if they just weren't trained writers and were writing a blog post or something like that. They were writing it in business voice, meaning, they were not using contractions. I would say they weren't using contractions, but they would say they were not using contractions.
Yeah, little pun there, little word pun. You're welcome.
Hello, I am so glad that you are here on my website. Everything would start like that. True. I will now teach you how to blah, blah, blah. And so that was one thing that I noticed, that nobody uses contractions. Nobody knows how to write conversationally, write like they talk. And then I also noticed that there was a lack of storytelling, or if they were attempting storytelling, it was really vague. Yeah. It would be, they weren't using original concrete detail. And that's something that I learned about. I might have used just by instinct a little bit, but I really learned about it in a creative writing class that I took. She gave us an example. I don't remember who the author was, but like a printout of a page or two of this book that was just, I think it was instructions on how to clean a kitchen. And it was so concrete. So there was not one vague thing in it. It was so full of what she called original detail. And I was like, that's the magic. That's where the story's at. So people would say, several years ago, I was not in my power. I was in a low place, in a dark place, in the darkest place of my life. And then I transformed. And I'm like, that tells me nothing. I have no idea what that means. What does it mean you weren't in your power? What does it mean you were in a dark place? Does it mean that you couldn't pay the bills and you were literally in a dark room because the electricity was shut off? Does it mean that you were fresh out of a breakup and stalking your ex on Facebook?
As we've all done. And crying into a bowl of Doritos and wearing dirty, unwashed sweats for weeks and not talking to anybody. Like, what does it look like? So I realized that people didn't know how to use original detail to paint a picture. And that's what makes writing feel authentic. It's what makes it feel alive and authentic. Yeah. I mean, just like
before we started shooting just now, we were talking about hair, and you were talking about your side part.
My new side part, you guys. It's my whole identity now.
Right? And you were saying that like it was part of your transformation as a person. You were saying that you used to like hide half your face with your hair, and then you decided to grow it out and show your face. Yeah. And that's a concrete visual, like paint a picture way of saying that you've transformed.
It's like show don't tell. Show, don't tell. That's like one of the first rules of creative writing. Yeah. And I think it's also true of copywriting, of marketing. Yeah.
One of the classic examples is instead of saying feeling overweight, it is better to say can't button your favorite pants. That's a show, don't tell.
Such a good example. And you're right. It's, I think, copywriting 101 or whatever like the kindergarten level would be is more just to state what it is. And I think we're taught even in business to communicate how you solve the problem. But the other way that I've heard it taught by someone who I learned quite a bit from a standpoint of business copywriting was imagine you're like the fly on the wall observing yourself in the issue and the problem. And that helped me start to almost get the mental pictures that then I could translate into the words. What are some of the other ways that you help people access if they're not used to telling stories or used to giving that much detail? What are some of the tangible things that you can recommend for someone to start tapping into that a little bit more?
Yeah, like what does your ideal customer or your ideal client's day look like? Meaning step by step, minute by minute. What are they doing? Write a journal entry for them.
That's so good.
In ridiculous detail. And so that gives you the details to put into your copy. So instead of saying like sick and tired of being sick and tired, it's like maybe, are you tired of being short with your kids and yelling at them when they so much as spill a drop of orange juice? Or, or it might be, are you sick of crapping out on yourself when you really wanted to get some work done and instead lying down and watching 6 episodes of Baby Reindeer?
Which is apparently the new rage, but I don't know. It seems a little dark for me.
It is dark.
I digress.
It is dark. It's dark for everyone. Yeah.
I'll do the clip notes of that one.
You kind of have to watch it like this. And then you need a palate cleanser.
Okay, great.
I watched Baby Reindeer and then the 2 new episodes of Hacks.
Okay, great.
Perfect.
That's
palate
a good
cleanser.
balance.
Yes.
That's a good balance. Yeah, I love that. That's so good. And I feel like, there's so many ways that being able to communicate in words, especially the written word, because even if I think of being able to communicate like this on a podcast, oftentimes it'll start with an outline, a summary, a written form of what I want to get across. And I think it's one of the things that as entrepreneurs, which a lot of our audience is, or anyone who just has a message they want to share, really taking the time to learn how to be a really brilliant communicator through the written word is something that can pay dividends upon dividends.
Absolutely. And you just, unfortunately, you can't outsource it to AI.
I wanted to talk about that, which we will in a moment, but I'll let you go on with that thought.
No, just everyone's saying, no, you're using the wrong prompts. When you have the right prompts, AI can sound just like you. Sorry, AI cannot, unless you feed it all your journals and you keep really good ones, AI cannot inhabit your life and your personality. It does not live your experiences. It does not keep track of the seemingly unimportant but truly important details that you would put into your writing to make it come alive. It can just it can only research what's already been written before. So if you were telling a story about say making money while on the, in the south of France, it would just come up with, while lying there and sipping rosé in sunny Provence, because that's been written a million times. It couldn't tell the true story. I don't know if you've been there. Or,
I have not, but I'm already there with you sipping my rosé.
Exactly. I mean, you can sip rosé, but it's probably something more specific or unusual, or it might be spilling rosé on your, new chambray shirt that you bought for the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just going to come up with the biggest cliches around. And I've seen people post these things that I can tell they think are really good stories. And it gets like, they can also blame the algorithm because that sucks too, but it gets like 2 likes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's because you're using AI.
Do you think, and if so, where, does AI have a place in our, let's just even say like our copywriting, our business copywriting? Does it serve a purpose, and how are we maybe using it the wrong way by outsourcing all of our copywriting to this machine?
Yeah, I think that it can write things for you that no one's really going to read, for one thing. Like, I don't know. Great point. Yeah, I've gotten invites from, this company's newsletter or that one. And it's like, it's really about the event itself and who's on the panel. And that's why you're going to go. And the title of the event, if AI came up with it, okay, great. If it can come up with a good title. But then the description is just embarrassing. It's like, unveil the captivating world of, behind the scenes of the under the hood of the, it crams a million metaphors in there and comes up with a triple, or from this to this, from that to that, or from this to that, this is an event that you'll be talking about for the rest of the week. And
like it's pulling from like 1950s infomercial copy.
Everything. It's just, it's garbage. And, when I get these things in my inbox, I'm like, I'm sure not everybody sniffs out the AI of it, and they're not reading that anyway. They're just like, do I want to go or not? They're not reading it to see if they want to go. I think that everything you put out in your business, or if you're a writer in your writing life, I think everything is a point of contact. It's a potential connection point and a place where you could fill it with your personality and your words and your point of view and make somebody fall extra in love with you, somebody who does read it because it's that good. But I think there's plenty that AI can come up with for you that's like, all right, fine. You want to save time there, go ahead. But it can also come up with a crappy first draft. And sometimes it's better to have a crappy first draft on the page when you're totally stuck and you have no idea where to start. Usually you end up rewriting the whole thing if you're any good.
Yeah, but it gets you started.
It can get you started.
That's such a great point, because I do believe, and it sounds like it sounds like you're agreeing with me, which is very important to me, that I think in this age of AI, it makes those of us that really want to take the time to infuse authenticity and like really create those moments of connection, because no amount of technology can ever recreate that, it just makes it that much more valuable.
Yeah. Yes.
It makes me excited.
Right. No, me too. It's a chance to stand out because everyone's going to be using it. Yeah. And I think, if you want to outsource your self-expression and your creativity, have at it. You're going to drown in the sea of samies. You will be
those
ignored.
Normies.
Yes, normies. You are not going to stand out at all. That clears the field for those of us who really want to express ourselves and be originals to do so and stand out. So great. Have at it, everyone. Do it. And then there's more room for you and me.
Thank you. We appreciate you. I'm in this interesting season of business too, where I don't know if you've had this experience. So, it's like as you scale, I know that outsourcing things in the business is necessary. And every time I've tried to outsource anything that tries to mimic my voice, it goes terribly wrong. Now, I haven't had any huge flops because luckily I have enough of a like overachiever, like give me that back part of me that I grab it back pretty quickly. But I'm actually at this point where, and I've heard some even bigger names talk about this, how that is the one thing that they don't actually outsource is anything that's like their voice, writing, even social media captions, things like that. And as I started to hear more people with bigger platforms share that, it actually gave me the permission I could have just given my damn self to say, like, I think that's the one thing, like, yes, I could hire this amazing social media person who might actually be the most brilliant social media content strategist person on the planet. They've got the awards to prove it. But nothing is going to translate the same way that my authentic voice is going to translate. And yes, that takes me more time.
Yeah.
That means that it takes more time.
Right.
But it's also, it's a direct connection to my heart and soul. And I know that the people that are going to resonate, maybe it won't even be as many people, but the ones who do are going to be my people.
Yes. They're going to be your people. And then no matter what you do, they're going to want in on it. Yeah. It's not just about this one offer or this one thing that right? It's like whatever you do, they want in on the ride because they feel like they know you. Yeah. They know, like, and trust you because you are putting you into the work that you do. I think it's so important. And I can tell when things are outsourced or when someone's social media team is doing it for them. And like a lot of them are like, just give us B-roll of yourself and we'll put all the stuff on it. And some of those are fine, but you don't get a real sense of the person if their point of view isn't in those.
Yeah. I think it's one thing if someone has a product brand or something where it's not so directly tied to like the voice of the person behind it. I am in this season where I'm like, let me just clear other shit off my plate that I don't want to do so I can take my time and like craft these posts and emails that even if it takes me a little bit longer, because I'm not always just creative. I don't wake up and have like the best idea ever for an email. But when I do, it's the stuff that I'm like, that's fire. Even if it's just for me. To think that.
No, but I'm sure other people think it too. Yeah. Whether or not they respond, I'm sure they do respond a lot when you write something that you're like, this is the good shit. But there's so many other people who don't respond because they think you're a big deal and they're just, but they feel a little connected to you. And that's where they get to the level of, if we met in person, we'd be best friends. Yeah. And that's that's the feeling you want to create. Yeah. Like, I know we would be best friends if we met in person. I mean, think how people feel about, say, Drew Barrymore or people who really show their personalities on the air or in some form. People say like, I need to meet that person. We would be best friends. Yeah.
So how do you walk someone through a framework or an understanding of how to create that type of connection with their audience, whether it's through their emails? We already kind of touched on marketing copy. If you were to break down the anatomy of copywriting that creates that OMG, we're besties feeling, what do you feel like some of those elements really are?
I think it's a lot of content, if you're separating copy from content, as in like, what gets them to the sales page eventually, or what gets them to that point of sale, all the stuff surrounding that, the emails and the podcasts and the blog posts and the social posts and all that. There's no one formula. There's no one framework for all of it, but I just say mine your life for stories and don't think that your stories have to be epic. Like, not every story is an epic transformation or rise from the ashes or,
like
rise
today
from...
at 7-Eleven, I had a transformational experience.
Right, exactly. Today at 7-Eleven, like today in Duane Reade, I saw a sign that said, I don't even have a point to this yet, but I had to take a picture of the sign that said upmarket sushi. Because I was like, well, it better be. And that's it if you have to say it. If you have to say upmarket, I'm not sure that it is.
Makes me a little suspicious.
Yeah, right, yes. But, you say 7-Eleven, I think of like, I'm sure I could turn that into an email or into a story. But stories happen all around. And think about the stories that you would tell a friend at dinner, or like that you would interrupt somebody to tell. Like, oh my gosh, that happened to me too. Or... that just happened to me on the subway. Like, just the little moments, you can turn those into big things. I believe in deep diving into the small moments rather than always trying to find the huge, you run out of your life transformation stories. You only have probably one time that you were at rock bottom, if at all. So you can't rely on that forever. And so don't think that you don't have stories worth telling just because you didn't come from the bottom and now you're here. Yes. And don't think that nobody wants to hear what you have to say just because you've had even if you've had a certain amount of privilege in life, just because you don't have that story of I was sleeping in my car.
Right.
That doesn't mean you don't have stories worth telling.
Yeah, that's so true. And what I can hear my former self really being stopped by that, feeling like I didn't have, even my transformation story didn't seem as dramatic. It wasn't as dramatic as so many of the others that I had really been inspired by. And the more I've shared it, the more I realized that it's not even like the deepest, darkest moments that are connecting us with people.
Right.
It's how I'm experiencing myself in the moment, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that was really freeing for me to just start sharing more of those smaller stories throughout the day, throughout the week. And those have actually become almost like the inside jokes, like the connective tissue in like a friend group where you have like inside jokes.
Right.
Now you and your community have inside jokes.
Yes.
Because you're sharing those little moments.
Exactly. So you create like an insider culture around yourself. Yeah. It feels like a club of people who really know you. And so there are callbacks, like the things they'll write to you about.
Yeah.
I have people who will say like, I don't know if it's too early to send you this email. Have you had your watermelon chunks yet? They all know that I go out for watermelon chunks every morning, like that I have this morning routine I've written about a million times. Yeah. And, or what episode of Housewives are you watching right now? Because they know that that's my default mode at any given moment is watching Real Housewives. So creating that universe of stories, of recurring characters, of things you love. What do you love? What do you hate? What are your pet peeves? Who is your nemesis? Who do you think doesn't belong on TV or on the screen ever? And who do you live for? And whose lyrics do you know by heart? What is your coffee order in the morning? And do they have trouble making it? I just say that because I have to redirect them every time they make my iced cappuccino.
You're washing their hands behind the bar.
I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have gone outside while you were making that. Now we got to start from square one.
Stick with me, Johnny.
Yes, exactly. So like, I'm known as the crazy lady at my local coffee shop. Okay. And then people know that about me.
You have such a brilliant way of not just writing in general, but I want to talk about emails specifically and this is something you actually teach people how to do. I think email copywriting in when it's shorter form, when you have fewer characters to really get a point across and land the plane, not only have the plane take off, get to its destination and land safely. Can you give us just some tips for how to start? Because I think it's like a craft that I'll always be honing, but start to bring more of everything we've talked about into email copywriting specifically, because I think that is just one of the best forms of connection that we have with the people that we serve.
Yeah. So when you're writing an email, say you have nothing to write that day. You could start.
I often feel that way. So continue.
I mean, and so do I. Okay. By the way, I have a freebie called Story Goldmine. I can tell you about it at the end.
Okay, yeah, and we'll link it. We'll make sure to get all the links.
Perfect. Because it's like 63 prompts for mining your everyday life for stories that sell. So you can look at that when you have nothing to write. Like, I bet you have something to say for at least 5 of these today. If I have nothing to write, I will sit down and jot down first of all, I start my day by writing in 750words.com. So it's like an online journaling platform. Oh. Yeah. And no matter what happens in the day, I feel like I wrote something. And it's never any good. It's just neural garbage that I'm getting down on the page.
Yeah.
But often I'm just reporting like what we did yesterday, what I ate last night, what my husband Stephen made for dinner, and whether we had an argument about how he was seasoning it. All that kind of stuff. And sometimes I'll find something in there like, oh, that's a story for an email. So you can start by writing something totally that feels insignificant, but that you're just drawn to write about, and see if you find a way to connect it to a point. Like, what is the takeaway here? What did I learn from this? What's the conclusion? Can you arc it to something? Can a lesson come out of it? And if not, you can just end with, just wanted to tell you that today. And here are 3 things you need to know, or like, here's something that's making my life better today. You can recommend when you're totally at a loss, especially if you're trying to write regular emails, which you should be if you have a business. You can always recommend something. Recommend one thing. It doesn't have to be 5 things. It can be one thing, one book I'm reading and why I like it and why I can't put it down, or one show that I just loved, or a song or a playlist. You can always recommend one thing that makes your life better. You can also go back into your old material and see if you've written something that was a hit before, and can you refresh it, or can you just say, here, today is a rerun. If you're totally at a loss, but you always have something new to say, always have something new to add. So I think when you have nothing, start by just writing down, like, what would I tell a friend if a friend said, what's new? You'd probably say nothing. I'm just getting back from the gym and was like hoping not to run into anybody. And of course I ran into my ex. You know, there's your story for your email. What would you tell a friend if they asked you what's new?
You're helping me realize, number one, I'm just massively over complicating it. And number two, even just like the freedom to, when you just like shared that story and then said, anyway, I just wanted to tell you that here's a book you should read, or here's 2 tips for XYZ. I almost find, and I think you're helping me also realize why I find your content so refreshing. I don't feel like I'm being marketed to. I feel like my friend Laura, who I'm lucky enough to say is like an actual friend, is just writing me an email that really entertained me that day. And that's very much how the kind of content that I respond to, it's also the kind of content that I want my audience to feel. So whether it's Laura, I highly recommend subscribing to her emails, or finding that person who you just find yourself really excited to open their emails and even dissecting why. But you really helped me nail exactly what I love about your content, is that it doesn't have to be super polished, and I also love like a quirky sense of humor. And you are that. And it keeps me coming back to your emails every single time they come to my inbox. Truly.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. It's because I set out always to write it like it's in what I call an EFAB, email from a bestie. So
I love that.
Yeah. So I like to write because this whole thing, like this career I've created for myself of writing emails and making money from them, comes from this wish that I always had. Like, I love writing emails to my friends back when we used to email friends.
Right. Remember those days?
Yeah. Remember? And if only I could make my living doing that.
Yeah.
So I've done my best to sort of translate that into what I write to my list. And so if you come back to that, like, what would I write to my friend right now? That's probably something for an email, and keeping that tone in there. And there are really successful newsletters and marketers that just write like 3 tips, and that's just not my style. I usually don't open them, and I end up unsubscribing because I don't want 3 tips. I'm not going to take action right now. I'm going through my inbox looking for something that looks compelling, like it's going to be entertaining, or like give me something juicy to talk about. So whether it's like industry gossip, or when I say industry gossip, I mean like entertainment industry, which isn't my industry anymore, but that kind of stuff, or something, or a story of failure, or somebody writes something. Whenever someone writes something about some way that they flopped or failed or embarrassed themselves, those are always great moments. And keep track of all those. If you just give us, failure porn, I love it.
Amen.
Because those things are so relatable. Anytime I'm totally stuck and blocked, I usually end up writing about that, because so many people in my audience, I think everybody really is trying to be a writer of some kind, or trying to produce something, and goes through phases where they feel creatively blocked. So it's so relatable to them, and it's such a relief when you give people a sense of not being alone. That's the greatest gift that you can give in your writing.
And just the authenticity, the vulnerability, those words are always so overused, but the courage it takes to put that unpolished story out there, and how much more, if we actually all think about it, those are probably the ones we as readers, as consumers, relate to most. Such a good reminder.
No, absolutely. Your most embarrassing stuff. That, like if you get honest in there, don't try to make everything into a hero story.
Yeah.
Or give us what I call vulnerable shit, or vulnerability, where it's like, I have to confess something, Lindsay. I'm feeling really less than about my recent 7-figure launch because I don't feel worthy of the money I brought in. Like that. No.
I feel like you need to have like I'm picturing the big red buzzer button and you just need to sit there. I don't know where, you're in some important office and you're just buzzing.
I like that job.
I like that for you. Yeah. So we'll work on that. I'm so excited that this ended up kind of aligning with, I didn't realize the paperback version of Tough Titties. We haven't said titties enough. Titty. It's coming out in June. And if someone is listening to this and hasn't read the book and maybe for some reason lived under a rock and missed our first interview, what can people expect from this? It's really like a collection of stories from your life, which is such a beautiful example of everything that we've been talking about. But who is it for? And really, what can someone expect if they pick up a copy for their summer reading?
Yeah, well, it is for anyone who's ever felt like a late bloomer, still waiting for their time to shine. Like, when's it going to happen for me? When am I going to come into myself, Or anybody who has ever felt like a loser at some point. Mine starts in 6th grade. And there are so many loser moments that my husband calls it loser sex in the city. Anyone who is also, there's a chapter for you if you are on the fence about having kids or don't want kids and feel pressure to have them, or anyone who's ever dated somebody unavailable, inaccessible, or maybe married the wrong person. And so there are so many stories. It starts in 6th grade and arcs to almost current day, and how I started my business and how I actually made it in my life. It came to a point where I feel like, oh, I'm successful. Yeah. I'm doing it. Yeah. Which of course goes away, and then I feel like a loser again.
And then you remember I'm the same person just with this public success.
Yes, exactly. It's for anyone out there or who generally feels like they're the worst, and is like, if you are constantly apologizing, saying, I'm so sorry, I'm the worst. If you drop the ball, if you flake, if you just maybe are a little selfish and not the person who's always giving, but, or maybe you need permission to give to yourself. Yeah. This book gives you permission to be yourself and maybe be a little selfish.
Yeah. And the piece I'll add on to that, it was like the permission to also not need to work on those things.
Yeah. Right.
Not everything has to be a project.
No. Yeah. No, you don't have to be a constant project.
Yeah.
And maybe it's okay that you just say tough titties to the shoulds in life.
That's
to
right.
all the supposed tos.
Yeah.
And are just who you are. And that's the way it is.
Just think of how much energy, time, money probably we would gain back living life fully from that perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Would be nice.
I want to talk a little bit about the other things that you do, the work that you do. We talked a little bit about the copywriting. I know you have something coming up for specifically writing emails. I don't know exactly when this will launch in relation to that, but I'd love if you'd talk about some of you have amazing free resources and then some of the places that you help people become less shitty writers.
Yes, I have many places to become a less shitty writer. So if you come, wait, do you want me to just name them?
Sure.
Name my freebies?
Yeah, let's just,
name them.
What are some of the things that you're just most excited about? Like when someone downloads that freebie, you're like, yes, okay, this is going to really help you.
Well, I'm always excited when somebody, because I'm such an email freak. I'm always excited when people download my guide to non-sucky subject lines.
Great.
It's my 33 most open subject lines and 4 that tanked, and then frameworks to make your own, because that leads them down the rabbit hole eventually to Inbox Hero, which is my signature course of my own. I have the Copy Cure with Marie Forleo, and that's a fantastic course, and like a comprehensive copywriting course for all the kinds of copy you want to do. But Inbox Hero is specifically about writing great emails that people love to open and read, that make you the highlight, the bright shining light of their inbox, and that sell, that make you money. So that's the thing I'm always excited about, and I launch it a few times a year. And I actually have a course. I created a course on launching a book after the launch of Tough Titties. Yeah. I was like,
and how not to name the book,
or how to name the book. Again, blessing and curse. If I had to go back, I would still name it Tough Titties, even with the fallout that it's gotten. Yeah. That is called Book Launch Hero. And it's part of my hero suite of products, but it's partly about writing the book, but it's mostly about launching a book. So
which is
there are tips on, I have a query letter to get an agent, and I do have, I think my proposal is included, and I have a lot on the book publishing journey, but the course itself goes through all the bells and whistles of that nobody tells you about, of a book launch, that all these things that you can do, all these levers you can pull that no one tells you about. And they certainly don't tell you when you get a book deal, or if you get a book deal.
That's what I've heard from so many friends who've gone the traditional publishing route. Okay. And we'll make sure we'll link anything that you share with us in show notes so people can easily find it. And I said this, I'm sure, the first time we podcasted, and I'm going to say it again. I think just even being a member of your email list, an email subscriber, is just such a beautiful place to start, because I have just gained so much entertainment, number one, which I feel like is one of the biggest compliments I can give you, like just so much genuine affinity for being a part of your world from reading your words. And then as I've invested in things like the Copy Cure, and just like really invested in how much I want to become a better communicator for my community, it's just been so fun to get to have you back here. And everyone grab the hard or soft cover paperback of Tough Titties.
Yeah, hardcover, softcover. I recommend
uncensored.
Uncensored, unfiltered. I recommend all three. If you want a multimedia collection, hardcover, paperback,
the collectors,
audio.
You can hear us say titties.
You can hear us say titties, but I read the audiobook myself.
Did.
Yeah, I narrate it, and I gotta say it's pretty good.
Okay, well now I'm gonna go and get the audio as well, because I'm doing a lot of walking in this season, and I love to put on an audiobook specifically like that. So my final question for you, which you would have answered when we first podcasted, and I will have to go back and check the tapes to see what you were proud of at that moment, but I love to give guests this moment just to really pause and acknowledge something that you want to acknowledge yourself for, big or small. And we just call it a powerhouse moment. It can literally be the smallest, most insignificant thing, or something pretty major. But when I say, like, what is a recent powerhouse moment that you want to celebrate right now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, just because we've been talking about it, it's launching that book, launching that puppy out into the world.
Yeah.
But then also just today, getting my act together to come to Midtown to shoot a podcast, which I knew was going to be super fun.
Yeah.
And I would never say no to it. But part of me wants to say no to everything that requires me to choose an outfit,
Amen, sister.
To put on makeup, to leave the house, like to look at the time.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those moments of saying yes and going for it. There's no risk to it, so it's not that big a deal. But still, I'm like, saying yes to anything is a big deal for me.
Yeah, I feel that. I want to say no to
everything.
I feel like you just saw into my soul. And thank you so much for saying yes. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and just for showing up today and putting on a cute outfit, makeup, and just the best purple nails too. We need to show those to the world. But
yeah, they were crack hoe nails about 4 hours ago, and I got them redone.
This is new. Okay, well, thank you for all of that effort that you put in to be here today. I'm so grateful.
So am I. Thank you, Lindsay.